please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Yep.
Okay.
Hello.
I'd like to welcome our viewing audience this evening to the Planning Board meeting of Thursday, February 26, 2015. Our first item of business is a continued hearing on the Fremont Street Trust, represented by Attorney Berryard Crimmins, for a special permit under the Stoughton Center Mixed-Use Overlay District, also known as the SHMOOD, in order to construct 21 residential units located over mixed-use retail office restaurant space, all at 760, 770 Washington Street, further identified on Assessor's Plan Map 54, Lot 285. Do we have a motion from the floor to hear this matter?
Move motion open.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
It's correspondence.
Ms. O'Toole, you just passed out a letter from the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Barry Crimmins, I would like to continue the hearing for our project that is located at 760 to 770 Washington Street and 6-10 Freeman Street. And they would like to continue that hearing to March 26th at 7 p.m.
Motion continue to March 26th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So passed. The next item on our agenda is a project for senior housing. And with us this evening, I believe, is the applicant and his counsel. Good evening, Mr. Simon.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Gentlemen,
Nice to
thank
see you again.
Thank you for giving us the time and the opportunity to come in and tell you our story. The purpose of us being here this evening is really just to start what will be, we hope, an extensive public process so that everybody will have an opportunity to understand what it is we're proposing, what it means for the town, well in advance of town meeting. We'd like to give everyone an opportunity to give us their input and critique it so that we can make adjustments as necessary before we get to town meeting. The one thing we do not want to do is have town meeting open up without everybody having a clear understanding of what is proposed here, okay? So that there's been no confusion on the floor of town meeting. And we have made, so far, one presentation to the selectmen informally. You are the second board that we'll be in front of. Just been told that we'll be doing municipal regulations on March 23rd. And then we'll be back in front of you guys for the formal presentation to you under the statute, and then back in front of the selectmen as well. And just so you have an understanding of how my client is approaching this, we have retained a real estate consultant called Margaret Murphy. One of Margaret's expertises is managing the public process for projects such as this. And she has already reached out to some of the neighbors on Low Avenue, and we have one of our neighbors here today. And she was in the process of setting up meetings for Precinct 1, and she'll be sending out packages to town meeting members. She'll be trying to sit down one-on-one with a number of people in town. We'll be doing press releases. We'll be on TV. We are going to make a 150% effort to make sure that we're dealing with the facts and not with supposition, worst case fears, et cetera, so that people can make an objective decision when we get to town meeting. Having said that, let me introduce you to my client. This is Chris Trevisani, Calamar Properties. Calamar is based in Upper New York State. They are in the business only of doing senior housing. That's all they produce. And they have a total of how many projects going on now?
10 in operation and 4.
And there is a fortunate circumstance that your housing report from 2009 identified senior housing as being a distinct need that was not being met in the town. And purely by coincidence, Chris came along a few years later, and here he is. And it seems to be a very happy coincidence that something that the town has already identified as an objective that it wants to achieve, there's someone here who wants to actually do that for the town. So we're hoping that this will find a lot of support in town. Eric Dias, I think you may probably know from other projects.
I've been here once or twice
Okay.
in the past, yeah.
Eric's with Tunis and Dias. They are the engineers, and we brought him along on the assumption that you may have some preliminary questions. So having said that, let me just point out what it is. We start to point out what it is we're proposing. So this is the actual rezoning map that's attached to the zoning proposal that's going to be in the warrant. Okay, it's a 10-citizen petition, so it's already in there. Okay? And what happened was, just to give us a background, that by the time the client had, thank you. Okay. By the time the client had actually done enough due diligence to be able to pull the trigger on this project, we were right up against your December 31st deadline for filing. So we either had to put something together really quickly, or we're going to wait until the next town meeting, and we didn't want to take the time, okay? So what happened was that we basically threw into the overlay district all of the property that is currently owned by the Hanson family on Pleasant Street, plus
Which family?
the Hanson family on Pleasant Street.
Howie Hanson?
Howie Hanson.
That family, okay.
That family. Plus one other parcel, which is this one here. This actually is a parcel that's not owned by the Hansons. It's owned by, it was actually a tax title until about a month ago, and a gentleman from Sharon has bought it with a view to putting up maybe some kind of small office building on it as well. The reason that we have thrown all of this property in here is that at the time we had to file this, the project itself and some of the final design elements of it, such as primarily the access, was still a moving target. Would you like to sit over here so that you can see? Sure. Was still a moving target. So we've actually included more property in the overlay district than is actually going to be part of the senior housing project. Can I get those plans from you?
You got it.
So this is basically a private house and
This is private, yes.
That's
how
right.
old are the people?
Yeah, yeah.
62.
So what we've done here very quickly,
So you're too old, Mike.
I'm 1 year away.
Thank you.
Where does the time go?
Time flies when you're having fun.
I'm always having fun. That's my problem.
Thank you.
Would you like one? So what we've done in here is there's if you can see, it's actually, what we'll do is on the next version of this plan, we'll cross-hatch it to make it stand out. So what's going to happen is that the access to this property is along a long driveway here, okay, which is this, okay? And the actual property that's going to be 128 units of senior housing is this piece back here, okay?
What's behind that?
Behind us is the school. I'm going to show you an area that will show you this in the context of the neighborhood, okay? So not all of the property. This piece here is in the overlay district, but that's not part of our project. But it ended up in the overlay district for the reasons I just explained. We needed to make sure that if we had to move things around, that everything we needed was going to end up in the overlay district. So the underlying zoning here is actually GB. What we're proposing is an overlay district. The sole use in the overlay district will be senior housing, nothing else, okay? However, just so everybody's on the same page, let me just find what I'm looking for here. The current zoning here permits these uses as of right, okay?
Thank you.
And, excuse my thumb, I've got one of those cuts that doesn't want to heal in the cold weather.
Thank you.
So this is the existing zoning. These are all as of right uses, okay? someone could come in tomorrow and get site plan approval, and then get a building permit, and that would be it. But as you are probably aware, I'm sure you're aware, that since these underlying uses are as-of-right uses, site plan approval cannot be denied by law. Okay? You can manipulate it, you can ask for other additional elements, you can ask for changes, but ultimately, site plan approval can't be denied. So these are as-of-right uses that are available on this land right now. We're proposing to create an overlay district that will only allow 62+ residential, rental housing, nothing else.
How many acres involved before I do that?
In this parcel, it's what, 13? 10 or 13?
I thought it was
10.
13.
I'm sorry,
10.
10 acres.
10 acres.
And you'll see a lot of it is a wetland, which we're leaving untouched. So this really is what I would call a downzoning, because we're taking something that's will allow retail establishments, business offices, miscellaneous business or repair services, whatever that means, and we're saying that if the overlay district goes in and this project gets built, the only thing we're going to be doing there is senior housing. Okay. You'll hear some talk around town about whether or not we should wait and see what happens with the master plan, with the rezoning, if it's ever going to happen, when's it going to happen, blah, blah, blah. When you hear those comments, let me ask you to step back and think about what might be a preferred use for this site, given its location on Pleasant Street, okay, other than senior housing, that would generate revenues for the town, have almost no impact from a traffic perspective. Okay? Why would we wait for a master plan and a rezoning? This seems to be about the most benign use for this site that I can think of, and I've sat and thought about it. Okay? Unless you want to dedicate it for park use or something, but that's not going to generate any revenue for the town. Okay? Let me show you some of the other boards that we brought forward tonight. Okay, so this is what we think this is going to look like from Pleasant Street. Now, you guys are used to seeing renderings, okay? But I just want to make the point, so forgive me if I'm already preaching to the choir, that this is not imaginary.
Big singer.
This is not imaginary, okay? We spent a lot of money producing these, and what this is based on is actual elevations, what the building is going to look like based on architectural detail, real distances, real sight lines, okay? And what you're looking at here, this is the entry from Pleasant Street, okay? You're looking at the entry of the driveway from Pleasant, okay? The distance from here to this building is about 450 feet. So it's set well back, okay? You can see that there's going to be landscaping around the entrance. We've provided fencing over here so that cars are not visible from Pleasant Street. They'll be hidden behind fencing. Yes, sir.
Quick question. What's the distance from the driveway to the Crown River Road as you're coming out to the left? You're coming up a hill.
Yeah, we've got a traffic report that's checked the sight lines.
How far? What's the site distance?
Do you remember the site?
We do meet the requirements for the site distance.
Supposed to be 200, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're at over 3.
Oh, okay.
Over 300 feet from this position.
Yeah, we've gone out and had traffic consultants.
You don't propose to put any lights or anything like that there, do you? Traffic lights or a blinking light or something?
When I get to the traffic report, I'll show you what they've recommended and what the
Okay.
client has agreed to do. Yeah, we're going to do something to
It's
try
more
and
than
control the
definition of
speed, yeah. Yeah.
That's his
So
problem.
this should be a pretty accurate representation. And when we get to, please God, we get there to site plan review, okay, I'm sure that there'll be other questions and more detail to be provided to address what this is going to look like from Pleasant Street. We haven't invested the money in that just yet because until we have approval from town meeting, it would be potentially a huge waste of money. So but you guys will get another look at this if it goes through for site plan purposes, okay? If I'm going too fast or you have questions, just stop me, okay? Now, let me show you in the context of the neighborhood. Okay. Upside down, not a good idea. Okay, so here's Pleasant, here's Pine, here's Low Avenue, here's the school, okay? Here's the Hanson properties here, okay? And then this is us. So you can see it's set well back, okay? The only other large structure here is the school. There's a huge wetland here that we're not touching. We've stayed as far away from that as we possibly could, which is why it's bunched over there. We have experimented with the orientation of the building on the site, and we've decided that this is the best orientation. The reason being,
Excuse
that-
me, I'm sorry, I forgot to shut it off.
you know, you're reminding me to do the same thing.
Why don't we all do it?
So we decided this was the best orientation. The reason being that this will create the minimum amount of interference with our neighbors here, okay? Because if we rotated the building, you'd have the traffic coming in this way. And we didn't want to do that. We didn't think that was a good idea. I'm going to pause so that you can think about that, okay? There will be a very dense vegetated buffer back here, 15 feet wide, trees 8 feet high. We took the requirements out of your existing zoning bylaw and cloned them into the proposed overlay district, okay? There is plenty of parking here. It's 1.25 spaces per unit, okay? Which is more than enough for 62 plus. That will provide adequate on-site parking for the residents and additional parking for visitors and guests. We have, when we went in front of the selectmen 2 weeks ago, Mr. O'Regan raised a question about whether or not there was any recreational space on this site. Now, as you may be aware under your own zoning bylaw, senior housing is specifically accepted from the requirement for recreational space. However, we did the calculations, and between this area here, there's an area here, and this area back here, there's a ½ acre of green space, literally grass, that people can use for recreational purposes. It's not going to be designated for that purpose. It's not going to be restricted to that purpose, but it's available. So if somebody wants to walk outside and have a smoke and walk around outside in the sunshine on a nice summer's evening, there's plenty of space to do that. No problem at all. Okay?
No tennis courts, nothing?
No tennis courts, nothing. I mean, we would have, except that means we're going to end up in the wetland. We don't. Not going to go anywhere near.
But the-
It's all the land you own, 13 acres?
It's this in
10.
here. It's 10 acres. But you can see all this unusable.
What about that other greens beyond that red line?
This
Yes.
That's all
not
what?
not owned by the Hansons, not available for sale as far as we know. I don't know who owns it, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you, to get from here, around here, between there's a right around here, drops way off, and then there's a huge wetland. So the accessibility over here is not really there.
Is there a clubhouse on that?
Yes. No, there's a community room, there's an outdoor patio, there are all kinds of facilities. Do you have the book that I provided?
Yes.
No, I
Yeah,
haven't.
we did bring it.
Do you want me to give you another copy now? So you
No,
can look at it?
I can picture it.
Okay. Let me stop. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask, just looking at it from a practical standpoint and the fact that we've had just a wonderful winter, has there been any consideration for putting the parking underneath for the residents?
Incredibly
know it's
expensive.
incredibly expensive.
I mean, that will kill
Yeah.
the project.
Okay.
Incredibly expensive. You'll see when we go through the materials, I don't want to insult Calamar's product. It's a Buick, it's not a Cadillac, okay? And once you start trying to do anything like that at all, part of the fact there's ledge right in the middle of the site, so it would be really hard anyway. Once you start trying to do anything like that,
price goes right
Yeah,
up.
I mean, you know, we don't want to produce a product that nobody in Stoughton's going to be able to
Right.
afford. We really don't want to do that. We want to make sure that this is affordable for Stoughton residents.
Well, how about carports? Would that be that expensive?
They're actually, you see these little doohickeys here? Those are actually garages.
Or are they?
So that,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
there's a
didn't look
limited
like that.
number of garages on
Okay.
site that people can rent if they want to keep their cars under cover, yes. I mean, you have to remember, Calamar has had a lot of experience with building these kind of projects. This kind of configuration works really well. There are other projects that are configured like this that have been very, very successful.
Yeah.
And the experience is that the kind of people who want to rent here want everything inside. They do not want to walk outside
Right.
other than to their cars. So you can connect, there's a laundry room in here, there's all kinds of stuff in here. And you can connect just through the interior hallways. You do not have to go outside when the weather's like this.
So these are rentals.
These are rentals, only rentals. Any questions?
And how much are they? Ballpark.
Chris?
We're starting with the affordable. We are willing to provide 15 affordable units based on the median income. I think those are,
Oops, sorry.
I think start around 1,200-1,300 for the one bedrooms. So that's kind of where we start, and then we range up to 16 for the two-bedroom market rates.
That includes heat and everything.
Heat and water, yeah.
So this is a blow-up of what we're proposing.
Just watch that side is falling on you.
Yeah,
Tighten up that
Whoops.
right-hand side.
We're losing a leg?
Just needs to be tightened up.
You're losing something there.
Come on, Mr. Engineer.
It's gonna look bad for me if I can't get this one right here.
Especially if it's cockeyed.
Get your, all right, I think we got it. Get your plumb bob out. And lose credibility.
Mm-mm. Not sure. I'll talk fast in case it's going to fall. Or
Oh, it
faster
just
than-
now moved on you.
Faster than normal. Whoops.
Maybe you have to get an engineer up here to straighten that out.
That or some duct tape.
There's another
and-
one right here.
There's one right over here.
Actually, let me tell you, maybe it was just the
We'll
weight. Maybe it was just the
Alright,
weight.
Yeah, if you want, you can just take that one over there. It's gonna keep falling
Just
off.
talk fast.
Yeah, it's okay. So here you can see Pleasant Street. Here's the entry. This is the point that we showed you the perspective from before, okay? Up the driveway, some parking here, parking in the center, garages, 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 green area here, recreational area around the back, okay? And this is meant to represent the buffer. Like I said, it's got to be at least 15 feet wide, 8 feet high, the vegetation. So there should be a real good thick buffer screen.
That's a four-story building, am I correct?
Right. Right.
3?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Elevators in it.
Yes.
They have to have elevators.
Yes. Yes. Elevators.
Yes, they come.
And then,
The market
you know,
does.
there's a detention pond right here.
The occupants that's are not gonna do stairs.
There's a
Especially with
detention pond right
handicap.
here. I mean, that's it. I mean, if you wanted more detail now on engineering, any questions like that, I don't know, that's why we brought Eric,
No.
just in case. No? Okay. Then let me show you. So that's, what you're looking at here is the view from in here, from the center. So that's what the building's gonna look like when you get out to your car and you walk towards it, okay?
Is that stone on the outside of the building?
On the, yeah, right there at the entry and around the
Yeah.
community room, the front of the community room, that is stone.
So what's the rest of the outside of the building gonna be,
The rest is a combination of vinyl siding, different colors and patterns.
okay.
Orchard Cove.
Mm. It just, it reminds me of that, yeah.
I have one of my friend's mothers is in Orchard Cove.
Mm.
We know the lady who runs it as well. It's a nice place, very nice place. I've been to services there a few times. So this is basically what you're going to get. Again, not imaginary. This is actually based on what they're going to produce. Okay, and you know, we gave it a nice blue sky. You can see the trees, so it's meant to look attractive to you. Hopefully, it does. Okay.
It wouldn't
The
look good
flag is a
today.
nice touch.
I'm sorry.
The flag is a nice
The
touch.
flag's a nice touch. Yes. That was Margaret. Originally, this did not have the flag in it, and Margaret Murphy, the real estate consultant, said, put a flag.
She knows.
And then she said, there's actually, you can't see it on this. Oh, yes, you can. The gazebo as well, which was a big hit with one of the select people.
Which one?
Sworn to confidentiality.
Right.
Okay. There are, unless you have questions, there are a couple of other things that I'd just like to hit with you guys, okay? Because again, the purpose of this process is to make sure that we're dealing with facts and not with what I'll call politely propaganda from people who may have another
I mean,
agenda.
you're not putting a baseball field in the middle?
Baseball field? I don't know. Then I don't know. Okay. So let me, if you wanted to take a, are you sure you don't want one of these, Mike?
No.
Okay, all right. So if you turn to tab number 3, okay? This gives you an overview. This is part of the materials that Margaret Murphy will be using. It gives you an overview, okay? 128 units, 32 one-bedroom, 96 two-bedroom. Now, here's an interesting little fact for you. 15 of these units are going to be part of your subsidized housing inventory in perpetuity, forever and ever, by deed. No ands, ifs, or buts. And the reason that we did that is really simple. You will all remember the issues that were raised at the spring town meeting relating to the schmood and the issues that people had with respect to 40B and the effect that some of the housing in the schmood might have on your safety margin over the 10% threshold. As you all know, I'm sure, you're currently at 11.24%, okay? The reason that there are specifically 15 units dedicated by deed as part of your subsidized housing inventory is to keep you at exactly 11.24%. That means that this proposal, if it's built, will have absolutely no effect whatsoever for 40B. It is completely and utterly neutral with respect to 40B. And the reason that we did that, let's be honest, is that we don't want to have a discussion on the floor of town meeting about whether or not this should be denied because of 40B issues. 40B is not an issue for this project. It has been designed deliberately to take that issue off the table.
So, who are you gonna deed this 15% to, the town?
However you want to do it. We don't
It's
care.
just, it's called deed restriction. They cannot be
Sold? in
leased.
20 years? Is this, what happens after
Right.
20 years?
They can't
Does
condominiumize
this-
it and
does this-
lease the,
Does this
and
come
sell
off the
them.
account? So it's gonna stay in the account forever?
The
Right.
problem that Mr. Simon is talking about is that there's a numerator and a denominator.
Yeah.
The discussion this spring talked about changes to both. Now, the other interesting thing about the 15 units is that the only units left that have a time restriction are 15 units
Oh, really?
in our housing count. Everything else is, President's Courts is near perpetuity. It's not quite there, but it's pretty much 40 years is what they agreed to. So the only one that has a time restriction are these 15 family units that are spread out throughout Stoughton. And so it's kind of interesting, it's the same number, but he's saying that the 15, if you were to change the denominator to denominator today, that the numerator would also result in no change to the 11.24. Because a change to
understand.
either of those two would cause a change to the percentages.
Yeah.
Understand that, Mike?
No, I understand totally, but I think your selectmen should stand and take the state to court. Because they've been shoving everything down our throat, but no one has the chivalry to fight.
Let's stay focused on.
So that should hopefully not be an issue at all, okay? And if you look in tab number 7, you'll see the numbers that will back up what I'm telling you. these numbers are based on state housing figures. These are the numbers that are commonly used in town. There's no mystery about this. There's nothing creative about it. It is what it is. It's a simple mathematical calculation. Okay? All right, so let's talk about the benefits to the town, okay? So whenever housing gets mentioned, you know, there's a real question mark over it as to whether or not this will be a positive or a negative for the town in terms of revenue, cash flow, and expenses, okay? So what we decided to do is, you know, we could talk to a blue in our face and tell you it's not going to be a problem for you, but that's not credible. So my client agreed to go out and hire an independent consultant. The independent consultant talked to your assessors, your fire chief, and your police chief, okay? Did not need to talk to the school department because it's a 62-plus community. There will be no children in this, not allowed. We do not rent to anybody under age 62, okay? So there is absolutely no impact in terms of the school budget whatsoever, except perhaps a positive, which I'll get to in a moment. He took the basic information from those three departments. He put it into a draft report. The original report said that this project would produce a positive for the town on an annual basis of approximately $196,000, somewhere along those lines, okay? That's after you've taken into account cost of ambulance, cost of fire, you name it, cost of police, okay? We showed the draft report to the police chief and the fire chief. The fire chief did not think that we had been conservative enough with the way we calculated some of the numbers. So he told us to change them, and we did, which dropped the 196,000 to 184,000. Okay? So the point I'm making is that we have not cooked these numbers. We have not fantasized about how good this could be for the town. This is based on hard information provided by your own department heads, okay? Not by the federal government, not by taking a comparable town somewhere else in the Commonwealth, not by taking state statistics and trying to apply those. This is information provided by your own fire chief, police chief, and your own assessor. We have been asked to have this report independently verified by one of your selectmen because he does not believe it, apparently. Or at
Which
least
one,
if he
may I
doesn't believe
ask?
it, he wants it confirmed. Let me put it that way.
Which one may I ask?
Mr. O'Regan. So my client, we're still waiting to get some numbers. Noreen's been working on it for us. And once we have gotten a number that we can live with, I will talk to my client and we'll see whether or not he's going to agree to do this.
You mentioned at the beginning of this fiscal presentation that the schools are an issue because of the 62. But I'm sure you're going to get a question at town meeting or before at one of the bylaw hearings about how do you police somebody who is staying with, and that's a question for your client, not for you, because that question's going to come up. How is the lease structured to police that very issue?
We already thought about that. So let me show you. I think I brought one.
Great question.
You're making me look, by the way, you just made me look terrific with my client. Because I told him that question was going to come up.
That's why you're talking to him before the meeting.
It comes up on almost all of it.
Common sense. Your people are going to say where there's a will, there's a way.
So at least I'm at least as smart as all the other lawyers he's working with. So let's put it that way. So let me show you some language that is going to appear in the standard lease form. Okay. Now, bear in mind. Let's be realistic about this. Bear in mind. Okay. We cannot control all human behavior that happens inside of our building. It's just not possible. Okay. But when people come and sign a lease, okay, if you look at the first page, this is the default section from the lease. If you permit anyone other than the lessee to occupy the apartment for more than 14 cumulative days in any 12-month period, you are in default. You can be kicked out of that unit, and you will be.
Can I add to this?
Sure.
The school department has a residency policy. You have to present a lease, a mortgage, and it has to say in the lease the child's name. So if they present a lease and it doesn't have the child's name, they're not a resident and they can't register for school. So there's that
Yeah.
little detail
And we-
too.
Thank you.
So
Thank
they
you
couldn't
for
get away
pointing
with just staying there.
Yeah.
That doesn't qualify you as a resident.
Thank you for that.
But I knew that question was going to come
Oh,
up.
it'll come up,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, definitely gonna come up, yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
And so that's,
Yeah, so you might want to know that when it
Contact
does
the
come
school
up,
department to
that's
get that.
also-
copy of the school
And then-
policy.
And you can
Not
it's right on
having
the website if you want to just pull it off yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Strengthens the argument, really.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you look at the second page of this is taken from the rules and regulations, okay? And again, we're hitting the same point. This is the rule that tells you what kind of guests you can have and for how long before it becomes a problem. And if you look at the language, the last line says, no, in big block letters, permitting any occupancy or use of the apartment that is not in compliance with these terms will result in termination of your lease. Okay? So they're making it very clear, anybody who signs one of these leases is going to see very clearly. You can't have people there for more than 14 days. You can have guests you can have guests for 1 day 14 times in a year. Think of it that way, okay? So if they want to stay over, that would be 2 days. You've got
Or
12
they could
days
do their,
left.
they could spend Christmas vacation there.
Exactly.
Between
that kind
Christmas
of
and New
thing.
Year's.
Yeah, I mean, we're anticipating there may be grandparents who have custody of grandchildren, you know, 1 weekend a month or something like that. So you have to allow for,
So you're flexible.
yeah, there's some flexibility.
Yeah.
But in terms of long-term residency, if you're under 62, not happening. It's not on the cards. The other thing to think about is that if you have deliberately chosen to live in a community that is 62 plus, and you see one of your neighbors with little kids running around and they're there for like 2 or 3 weeks at a time,
Yeah, what are you, stupid, bringing kids?
I mean, people are gonna, you know, gonna complain.
Self-police a little
Yeah,
bit.
there's some self-policing, you know, gonna happen there as well. You don't go into one of these units if you want to be around a lot of children all the time. Okay?
I have a question, may I ask?
Sure.
Are we gonna have like, I noticed you didn't have any, you don't have a guard there, it's not gated or whatever.
It's not a gated community?
No.
Is that what you're getting at?
Why is that? I'm just curious.
Why is that? It's not the style, not,
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
we don't feel that this is more of an exclusive type of neighborhood. We think it's more for moderate to mid-level income. But it's not a public facility where the doors are wide open. It is still a secure facility, and there are double doors, and we do have someone monitoring people as they come in and out. There are security cameras within the building.
We have a custodian there all, every day, I know.
They're not there 24/7, but we do have maintenance staff that take care of trash, housekeeping, things like that on a regular basis.
and in, I believe it's correct that in some of your developments, if one of the residents wants a job as a, you know, and they're looking for somebody,
I
that,
could save money, sure.
that can happen as well. That's a possibility. Any questions?
Yeah, that's good.
And DPW wouldn't need to necessarily be involved in the on-site,
No.
I
No.
assume.
It's all-
So
all
you might
private.
want to mention that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah, it's all privately run, the on-site stuff's all private, okay? So, as I mentioned to you, on an annual basis, this should generate around about $184,000 a year for the town. And when the original report was done, the consultant also included the one-time fee of a building permit. But what he didn't figure out, what isn't in the original report, this was produced today.
I didn't see it.
Okay, is these additional fees, okay? These are all of our fees that you're all familiar with for new developments, you know, hooking up to the water, the sewer, whatever, okay? So I didn't realize that you hadn't seen this. So I have to give you these with a caveat that my client has only seen this for the first time. I got it from the consultant directly.
I don't
so-
set the cost.
And the building
No.
permit fees don't include the
Plumbing.
$500,000 that are going to go to the plumbing inspector.
So they,
The plumbing
the
fees.
the plumbing's, you know something, I knew there was something we forgot. We'll add that in. So you can see that one-time fees, it's almost $250,000.
Yeah, the water fees aren't,
I'm not sure that were you aware of these before?
I was aware of the bedroom sewer. fee.
Okay, yeah.
That's $49,000.
This building's gonna be sprinkled, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah, we have a regional water supply that we've hooked up to since 2004.
Well, he's gonna be right near the,
Yeah, but he's not gonna be able to tag.
Oh, really? this pressure
The
won't be
tank.
too good.
Could you put a well on this property?
I have no idea.
I mean, there's enough wetlands there,
Yeah, what are you gonna do with a well?
instead of using town water.
No, I think.
Any well that serves more than 24,
I think you better look at your
units
contract,
has-
Mike.
has to have
I
a,
think that's wrong with you.
municipal, person in
You
to
got a
have
gun
to,
to their head.
it wouldn't be feasible for them to do that,
What do you mean?
just what I said.
You've got fire suppression, that has to be in a separate,
What about down the other project that they stole all the water from the town?
What project?
What project? What's everyone, sleeping at the wheels?
What are you talking about?
Where that guy used to live? Oh.
There's no wells down there. Oh, there is a well,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah,
pump
yeah,
station.
They were all wells.
It ain't wells.
Whatever.
okay, so Len, so you're, okay, total estimated fees plus the 224 inclusive of the 181, or is it exclusive?
No, those are just, these are just fees, one-time fees. So in addition to the $184,000 a year, just net, okay, from the real estate taxes, there's also the one-time fees totaling about $250,000.
Yeah, and as I said, there's still not the permit fees in here.
There's there's no plumbing or electrical.
I know, that's why I came up with that $500,000 for the.
Well, yeah, they'll take care of the plumbing fees.
Yeah, I know, that's what I said.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Any questions? Mr. Barron, any questions?
Yes, I
You-
do. So basically, if you total the 184, then we'll do 181. And then the 224.80, you come up to about $406,000 for the first year
Yes.
of occupancy. Then further years from that, you're gonna hit 181 after that.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's 23, 92, okay. I'm now gonna throw a fastball. Why are you doing
I
spot?
told you to throw a curve.
Why are you doing the spot zoning?
Ah, you're not a fastball. You've
Oh,
not,
yeah, I'm gonna
you've
throw
not
you
looked,
two of 'em.
You didn't
Two of
look
'em.
all the way through the end of your package.
I've gone all the way to the end of the package.
Yeah.
I've looked at the reports.
I'll
and
talk
then-
to you about that in a minute.
And then I'm gonna flip it back and said, you know what happened in spot zoning in Stoughton? You know, we already did this before. What happened? We made those condos, those apartments on West Street. Then the market crashed.
Oh, yeah.
Then what
yeah.
happens is now then they wanna sell those, but you can't because you have spot zoning in senior housing, or assisted, or senior housing in age. So everyone knows that spot zoning works, so what's to say you change the name from Autumn Ridge to the JCC housing? Now you can cover yourself under the religious part of the zoning, you don't have to do spot zoning. You don't have to go to town meeting.
If you want us to enter into restrictions that will prohibit that, that's fine. My clients are only in this business. You know, at some point in the future, the entire building could get sold. In 20, 30 years, I have no idea. Anything could happen. Someone comes, anything's for sale at the right price, okay? But-
I'm not talking about, there's my two concerns are the spot zoning and two, it's rental properties.
Okay, so let me talk to you about spot zoning. When you say spot zoning, can you be more explicit about what your
Because you're
concern is?
you're taking a property of land, a section of land, and you're saying that to live on the property, or rental property,
Yeah,
you have to be 62 and older.
yeah.
Well, I'm not 62.
You can't live there
That's right. Well, why not?
because you're not 62.
No, but think about
Okay.
it.
So
The
this
market-
is,
But the market crashes. So now I got all these units here that are for rent, and we have a situation, the state of Massachusetts is no longer 10%, it's 20% fair housing.
Well, now,
But no, but think about it.
let me stop you for 1 second,
Yeah,
okay?
but, no,
We're-
before,
we're
no,
gonna
let me go on.
You could get hit by a meteorite
No,
tomorrow.
no, but
The
you
state
know
could
what?
say you have to
You
go
know,
100%.
ISIS can come into town tomorrow.
I'm not gonna deal
What-
with
no,
it.
no,
I am
but-
not.
no, but
I'm
listen,
sorry, Mr. Barrett.
You're gonna
I'm
go to
dealing
town
with
meeting, you're gonna,
facts.
you're,
I'm dealing with facts.
I'm
These
dealing
are
with facts too.
I'm dealing with
Right
facts.
here, spot zoning in your section says
Yeah.
spot zoning doesn't work in
Joe.
certain sections. And I'm trying to save,
Doesn't say that.
okay, let's go to here.
What it says is, if you look at the highlighted sections, is that if there's any claim at all that the area that you've rezoned has been rezoned in compliance with an objective that the town has identified that it wants to achieve, then.
But if the town does not want to achieve.
Let me finish, please. The zoning stands. It is good, okay? Because the courts will always give deference to what a town has decided to do unless it's clearly for only rezoned for the benefit of a private individual. And since this is being done in pursuant of your own housing report from 2009, which is in the process of being updated and which I understand will also, again, identify senior housing as a specific need for the town, this is no question that this is not spot zoning. Not under the legal definition. Now, if you're using the term in another way, that's what I was trying to get to.
Okay.
So, okay.
Then, okay, that question one. Question two, why apartments? So you give me a number of $405,000, okay, first year, and 181 years after, okay? That's only that's only under $200,000 you bring into tax basis, Stoughton. That's only $200,000. So what happens when the school wants to put addition? They can't put taxes on. You only bring seniors. Seniors don't want to pay for higher taxes. How do we improve the school system, guys? We're trying to improve this town. We're just going backwards. I would rather say, let's take the zoning and say, not spot zoning, and personally, do it as condos.
They're not in the condo business.
I'm not
They're
saying.
the rental business.
You're right, they're in the rental business. But I'm saying to you, it's an option.
Let me tell you the risk that you do with the condos, okay? The condos will not necessarily be 62 plus, okay? You're going to potentially go through the same problem you had with Terry Conroy, that he'll bring something to market, which if it goes out as condos, people will not be able to afford, and he won't be able to sell them for a lower price because he's got too much invested in them, okay? The rental housing is the need that's has been identified as being underserved for this particular community. Seniors do not want to own condos because they're worried about increase in condo fees, okay? They want to know they're paying a rent, and the rent is fixed for a period of time, and that if the rent goes up and they don't want to pay, then they can move out. It's easy living. I'm actually living in a rental myself. I love it. I just absolutely love it.
Now, as far as your point, Mr. Barron, about the revenue isn't fixed. The taxes that building will be reassessed every
Correct.
3 years.
Correct. But you're only looking at 200,000 or maybe 220, 230.
But you're judging that against the services the town is providing.
Yes, and I'm saying that the town is getting screwed, guys. The town is getting screwed. If we're trying to
I
bring
disagree.
tax base to the town, we're giving this town away for free.
We're also trying to bring housing,
Okay.
the town.
Common sense housing. Common sense housing.
elderly housing for our elderly
And
housing
no, elderly
numbers.
housing, let me tell you something. Elderly housing has a place. But if you want to improve your tax base and you want to see a growth in the town, younger families, not seniors. I'm not shooting you down over 65 people. I'm telling you, let's be realistic. The schools are in an issue. The libraries issue, the municipalities are an issue. Why is Canton better? Why is Brockton better? Why is Easton better? Because they're looking at housing initiatives. They're saying, okay, rentals, condos. But you want to do more rental properties? Hey, that's fine with me.
Excuse me, may I say something?
Yeah, sure.
My wife teaches in the school system. I know a lot of people that teach. Our school system is excellent.
Okay. Who are you trying to tell me is excellent?
Well, my daughter's starting to.
Okay, we're not even going there at this table, I'll
What are
tell
you
you right
ripping the
now.
town
So
for?
don't even start.
Why
We're not
you
going
ripping
after
the
the school
town?
department.
He-
We're here to talk
you
about a
only showed
project.
We're not talking about
So
the school
shut it
department.
down.
We're not talking about the school department.
Moving
We're talking
on.
about the quality
Out
of
of
the town.
order.
We're
Mr.
done.
Barron,
This is
okay.
out of order.
May I respond? I mean,
Oh, boy.
Go ahead, go ahead.
You have
You're
a
right, yeah.
valid
Yes, go ahead.
comment, okay? Let me ask you to think about it this way.
Sure.
if this, first of all, if it's not going to be rental housing, it's not going to get sold to my client, okay? It's not zoned for anything other than what I told you before,
That's right.
okay? The property is on the market, okay? By the time it gets rezoned for the uses that you're proposing, if it ever got rezoned for those uses, it could have been sold for something. You could have a Walmart on there, a Walgreens, some other commercial use, because those are the uses that the town has already identified for that site. They are as of right uses, okay? So you need to be realistic with the way this is being approached. Because if this doesn't become rental housing as a result of this town meeting, the Hansons have got this property on the market. And someone's going to come along and say, I've got a 10-acre site that's already zoned for retail or office, and they're going to put an office building on there or a retail use, and there's nothing that anybody can do to stop them because the law gives them the right to do that, okay? The condo market is iffy for seniors. People who want to downsize don't necessarily want to reinvest whatever money they take out of their homes and put it into a harder asset. They sometimes, I've just done this myself, they'd rather keep the cash in the bank so that they can sleep at night. They've got a nice something under their mattress. Rental housing allows them to do that, okay? If it becomes single family or multifamily housing, you're going to add children to your school system, which is not something, I find myself creeping myself out even saying this because it's not the way I think typically. But the reality is that a lot of cities and towns do not want to add children to their school systems because of the costs involved, okay? And you have no idea if this becomes single-family housing, okay? The real estate taxes that it will generate will be a lot less than are going to be generated by this building, a lot less. And the services will be just as much, if not more, and you're going to have the burden on the school system. This is as benign a use as possible for this site, and it is probably the use that will soak up the minimum of municipal services and generate almost $200,000 a year for the town. It's not $1 million, it's not $2 million, it's not $5 million. If there was a site large enough that my client could get permits to build something big enough to generate those kind of revenues for the town, we'd love to do it, because the more money you make off real estate taxes, the more money he's making. Because the more he builds, the more money he makes. And that's what he's in business for, okay?
How much is that land paying taxes now?
I can tell you that in a second.
He's on a
Nowhere near
state
what we're calculating. I can
reduction
tell you that.
plan. He's not paying much.
I know. Yes, the farmer market, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. So right now, the Hansons are paying, wait a minute, this is the, yeah, hold on a second. They're paying, where is the, I can't see the, no, that's the land area. Where's, I can't see the, hold on, is it on this? I thought I had it. No, this is the assessed. No, it's this land area. They're paying $12,500 on one parcel, and they're paying, let me make sure, 15. They're paying about $2,000 on the other parcel.
So we'll increase, we'll get a good
And
deal.
tenfold.
Oh, yeah.
So we're making money.
Yeah. So
Yours.
the bottom line is that I haven't yet been able to figure out what a better use for this property would be. But Mr. Barron's comment is the kind of comment that we were expecting. And it's one of the reasons, Mr. Barron, that we came to this evening, because we want to flush this stuff to the surface.
I understand that.
And, with all due respect, talking about what the state might do in 2050 is not relevant to the discussion that's on the table
Correct.
right now. And people need to keep in mind that what the underlying zoning is that can't be taken away from them. So you need to put it in context. If you don't want this to be rental housing, then you have to accept the reality that it's probably going to be some kind of retail or office use, which is, I don't know how you feel about that. And,
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's talk about traffic for a second. So we hired McMahon Associates. They are a very reputable traffic outfit. And they've been out there. What I've given you here is just the conclusion from their report, because the report runs 30, 40 pages, and there's like another 50, 60 pages of traffic data attached to it. You've all seen these reports before, okay? Bottom line is that because this is a senior housing community, people do not necessarily go in and out during the rush hours. But during the rush hours, we're expecting, and we also, at Mr. Scardino's suggestion, we also looked at the 2:30 to 4 slot, I think. It's 2:30 to 4, when the school's letting out, where there was a perception there might be a problem there as well. We're not going to add hardly anything to the traffic flow at all. Maximum, the engineers are telling us, is between 20 and 40 cars an hour, which is a drop in the bucket. Nothing. Now, in terms of the question that was raised before about sight distance, okay, they have actually recommended that we install radar speed feedback signs on Pleasant Street, which my client is willing to do, okay, without being asked. So we're going to try and help manage that. And then 2 weeks ago, while we were waiting to get in front of the selectmen, I sat through a presentation from the town's traffic consultants. One of their focuses was the intersection of Central and Pleasant, and there are improvements that are already planned. There is money in the warrant that they'll be looking for approval for this spring to make improvements there that should help the traffic flow improve. Apparently, basically, the software and the mechanical systems in your signal system are either A, non-functional, or B, haven't been updated for a very, very long time. No one's really looked at them. This is the first time. So there's an anticipation that the town already has that intersection on its radar screen, and that there will be improvements being made shortly.
Are you gonna have lights at that corner?
Already has.
Are we installing lights?
Yeah, right
No.
there.
Not called for.
I understand it isn't called for, but as a senior, if you're coming out of there, left or right, it would be a good idea to stop traffic as they're coming out, I think. Unless the study says I'm wrong. Unless the person who's doing the study is my age.
Well, you shouldn't be driving at your age.
We actually, Mr. Samaka, to be honest with you, one of the reasons that remember I talked earlier on about we threw more property than we needed into the overlay district to make sure that we need to move things around, that it was properly zoned. That was one of the reasons. The original location we decided was not optimal for that particular reason, and we've moved the driveway for that particular reason. And now the traffic engineers are telling us that it works fine.
All right.
So that was an issue, was a concern. I will tell you, just as an aside, that the first time I tried to drive out of the Hanson's property into Pleasant Street, and I've got a turbocharged car, it took my breath away for a second. And that's approximately where the original driveway was going to be located. So we've moved it, so that's not going to be an issue now. And we'll put these radar screens in to try and get people to slow down as they're approaching it as well. You have to remember, from our perspective, it wouldn't take much to kill this project. I mean, if there were a couple of 3 accidents in that intersection, no one's going to want to be there. So we have to be really careful with this. This is a high priority issue for us. If we get this wrong, we're basically shooting ourselves in the
If
foot.
people don't perceive themselves as being safe coming
Exactly.
and going from there,
Yeah.
they're not going to rent there.
Yeah, yeah. But we have to be real careful with that. And then I've already talked to you about tab 7, which is the 40B calculation. And then tab 8 is the information I gave you on the legal aspects of the spot zoning issue. I gave you the conclusions from your own 2009 housing report and highlighted the section that indicates the need for this housing. And then, so that no one can accuse me of cherry picking the information, what I did was, I went into this, the Massachusetts Zoning Manual. This is one of the standard manuals that is used by all zoning council in Massachusetts. And I took the section on spot zoning and I copied all of it, not some of it. I didn't choose what suited my purposes. I gave you all of it. I did take the liberty of highlighting some of the stuff that I thought was relevant. And the conclusion here, the legal conclusion that's beyond the shadow of a doubt, is that this is not spot zoning in the legal sense in any way, shape, or form. And my client is spending a ton of money in reliance on that legal conclusion. It is not spot zoning. Okay. I've just thrown a ton of stuff at you in a very short period of time.
We get it.
So I don't know if you have any more questions, or, I mean, we will be back in front of you again for a formal presentation under the statute, but
And during the public hearings
during the public.
Yeah.
on the articles.
We gonna have coffee that day when they come?
Anybody else with anything? Well, we thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you
Thank you for
very
having
much.
us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hang on for a second?
Sure.
All right. Thank you very much
Thanks for your
indeed.
time.
Thank you.
Your input.
Take a
Mr.
brief
Barron, thanks for your
recess.
input.
We'll take a brief recess of 5 minutes.
Old business, I guess, if we're doing
Yep.
minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
The first set we're going to look at is November 21st, 2013. I think the first thing, Ms. O'Toole, you want to, on page 3, you want to tell us how that blank is going to be completed?
Yeah, at the bottom of page 3, the name is Rouse, it's R-O-U-S-E, that I'll add to the minutes.
Okay.
And on page 4 of 6, at the bottom of the page, it's Dunn, D-U-N-N. And on the last page, 6 of 6, it was Mr. Angelos, and the second one was Mr. Samaco.
With those changes, could I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
I didn't vote just because I was only here for a portion of it, just so
So
you
you're
know for the
abstaining?
record. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that way.
She only does one gray
I can
section, not
only-
two.
Sorry.
Sorry. Them grapefruit smiley faces, you know.
Now we're doing Thursday, the 23rd of January.
Mhm.
Did it get cold?
And by the way, just
It
for
is, it
the,
is cold.
It got
Joe,
cold.
is your mic on?
just for the information of the board, as you know, the engineering department and Ms. O'Toole have been looking for a replacement recording secretary for the board and have been unsuccessful at late, so that's why we're doing minutes of this
Right.
age.
Mhm.
The hope is that we will get a recording secretary that will be able to catch us up on the minutes, so that we will not be talking about events so far into the past.
What are you looking for, a secretary for us?
Yeah,
Recording.
well, you know one?
You
Oh,
know,
wow.
that does the minutes. They have to know how to do minutes. And that's always the issue, minutes.
Minutes, all right, I'll ask.
Ask around.
I'll ask.
Mhm.
First I gotta be intelligent.
Okay, we had no,
I
Miss-
didn't have any corrections on this particular one.
no, I didn't see any, and so I will entertain if anybody, give you a couple more minutes to look it over, and then we'll,
Motion to adjourn, is that what you're looking?
no, we're
No,
looking for
not
a
yet.
motion to approve.
Motion approved,
January 23rd.
January 23rd.
You can move, but you can't vote. You went there.
I was in the sun.
You were.
That don't count.
I wish I was there. Well, my wife was.
Should just be
Oh, the
sworn.
road's going up to, all right?
Yeah, fine.
I I gotta go to a funeral Monday.
How far up you going?
It's not good.
You going up
Oh,
93?
okay.
The York mean,
Oh, yuck, yuck, man.
Glad
Oh.
you asked. You
Hey.
should hear about it.
what is it, 2 hours?
Yeah,
James is still checking it out, so.
you just over the border.
I think it should be gas
You're not
stalls.
going
Just kidding, no,
93
gas
though,
pumps
you're
is
going
fine.
up,
Okay, I entertain a motion from the floor to approve these minutes.
Motion to approve, January 23rd, 2014.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So it's 4-1.
Okay.
And abstention?
I was here, present, don't remember it, but it's okay.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Prototype,
Oh, never
yes.
mind.
Yes, yes, thank you. What Disney World's for.
I guess we'll
Okay.
skip to item B, a motion, I'll take a motion to open up general business.
Motion to open up general business.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to skip to B. The date of our next meeting, I believe we already have a hearing scheduled, or do we not for the
Orange.
We don't for the 12th. We have a hearing scheduled for the 26th.
26th?
What time did you say on the 26th again?
7 o'clock,
7 for hearing here.
7 PM.
7.
So we have nothing scheduled as
For the
of,
12th, as of yet, no, we don't.
okay. So right now, the
But-
next meeting, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I like to do is, I will post the 12th and the 26th in case something comes
Yeah.
in,
Case,
just
yeah.
so that I have the room. So I already posted that meeting.
Now, the other thing, Noreen, do you have a date yet for, he mentioned, Mr. Simon mentioned the hearing on the articles with the, that's usually a joint
Municipal
hearing.
regs.
Yes, that hearing was just scheduled today. That hearing with municipal regs and rules, that joint hearing we have,
Yeah.
that's on
That-
March 23rd.
That's gonna be joint with us, with the planning board, am I correct?
Yes. As far as I know, I can recheck. As far as I know, it's at 7 o'clock, but I will check that.
Okay.
Now, what I'm gonna try to do is, schedule our hearing, because we have to have our own statutory hearing. And the 26th is very busy for us. So I'm thinking that if we don't have a meeting on the 12th, I'd like to try to schedule our hearing on the 19th. And that's all we'd do that night is the zoning.
Can't, we have to wait till the public inputs. We can't have the hearing on the 19th. The public will only opine on the 23rd. And our decision has to include the public comment. So those articles, unless you want to do, no, you can't. Anything that has to be heard from the public, we have to hear the public first, because it may or may not impact our decision.
I don't think I'm following you on this, Joe.
For the town warrants.
You were going to have them, unless you're talking about something else. I thought you were talking about our own hearing on the article, our own meeting on the articles.
I am.
Well, we can have one before and one after, but I don't see the need for two.
We have to have our own hearing. The
Right,
Rules Committee,
right.
that's a charter requirement.
Right, but I understand that.
Yeah.
We have to have a meeting to approve or to disapprove. That has to happen after the public hearing or simultaneous.
You mean on the 23rd?
It can either happen on the 23rd or it can happen soon thereafter, but it can't happen on the 19th. We can't meet and then the public come in and bring something. The whole purpose of the public hearing is to inform the boards,
Right,
to make an informed decision on
right.
the articles.
I mean, I have always had them after, but not because it had anything to do with the law.
And we've always had them after.
Okay, then we'll do it after. Because that's not part of the statutory law, the charter hearings is what I'm saying to you. We're separate. But you like to have them after. You want to hear what they have to say on the 23rd before we have ours?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Then what I'll do is, see, we really want to have that in March. So if I could have it on a day that wasn't a Thursday, what is a good day for people?
Sunday.
Just don't make it the third Wednesday of the month.
That's the one that was funny.
What I was,
Could we do it televised?
no.
No, we haven't accepted that.
Dang it.
How are Mondays? Like if I was to propose, it'd be an awfully busy week though. No, that's not gonna work either. I was thinking of March 30th or 31st,
What day is it?
Monday or Tuesday.
Is ours a public hearing or just our meeting?
Our
Our
meeting.
meeting.
It's our meeting to have the public hearing for zoning, and that's all we do that night.
To have a public,
No, we
o'clock.
would vote on the articles that
7, I
night.
guess.
so
Even
we
the-
couldn't do it after the meeting on the 23rd?
We
is what I'm
could.
getting at.
We could.
But I
We
know
could do
those
it there,
times
but we
when
still have to have our own. It's almost
We'd
like
have
a-
to adjourn.
It's almost like we
when we don't
adjourned,
carry
and
out.
it's almost like a repeat.
Right.
We'd have to adjourn from the public
joint
hearing
Yeah,
to have our own meeting.
yes.
That could also be done.
You wanna do it that
I
way?
just know you're running out of time, just offer that.
Yeah.
Noreen, do we know what the deadline is for the book on the vote?
I don't know that yet.
Do you want to adjourn and ask Jamie?
I don't think she's here, is she?
Oh, I thought she might have, usually she's here after 8.
Yeah, no. I could find out tomorrow, though, the deadline for the book.
Yeah, and then you can get back to us. We'll pencil in the 30th, and if it's not needed,
I
See,
think it'd be a
it'd
good idea to do it the same day as the public hearing,
I don't have a problem with that either.
because everybody will be here.
Let me just see what,
See, I do, because when I pass in my postings to the Attorney General's office, they want a posting that says Planning Board. They don't want a posting that says Rules Committee, because they said, no, I want your public hearing.
No, but we could close
Post-
our joint hearing
Right.
and then come in here.
I know,
post
then
a
I'd-
meeting later on in the
but that
evening,
doesn't
like at
work.
8
But I'd
o'clock.
still have to, I'd have to post another public hearing notice.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, which I could do. And once, even, what I'm saying is that hearing takes quite a long time. What time do you want to do the zoning? 8 o'clock at night?
Well, that's
Is what I'm saying to you.
Well, we had a CPC, well, what we can do and
What you
should
can do
do are
next
two
day.
different things, but
Yeah,
it's only 2
Three
articles we're hearing, correct?
one article.
Really?
That article that we had this evening.
That's it? That's all that's been
That's it.
assigned to us?
That's all, yes.
Well, I don't see a problem with giving that an hour and a half and then scheduling our meeting afterwards. That starts at 7.
I'd love to see Mr. Simon again. He's such a cheerful man.
8:30?
I guess what I'm thinking is,
Because you can't have it start,
I just think that's too late for a separate planning board meeting to schedule at 8:30 in the evening. For people who don't want to go,
no, because the public hearing
You
is
have
at
to do the
7.
public hearing first.
see, I'd rather have this separate, Joe.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I would. I think it'd be simpler.
fine, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll reserve the 30th, and if you have more time, then we'll spread it out that week. We'll do it Thursday, the 2nd of April.
Yeah, see, the problem is we don't want to do it, I mean, if you wanted to do it, it would be awfully busy if we did it on the 26th, because we're going to have the mobile coming in on the 26th and the downtown project on the 26th. It's not that we couldn't do zoning on that night, we could. Because it is only one article. We could do it on a regularly scheduled night.
Hearing out that article, even though it's one, is pretty intense, you know.
Yeah. So if we want to have a standalone night, we just have that.
I mean, you only heard my viewpoint. We're just telling that the rest of another
That's
board's
right.
viewpoints that can,
Yeah.
they can, yeah,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, there'll be a lot.
Trust me, Mr. Simon's gonna love me after that day. It'll be a walk, a cakewalk.
So maybe we just go the 30th, have it at 7 o'clock, and schedule an hour and a half at least. And that's the only thing on the agenda that night.
This is next week?
No,
No,
it's
no.
March 30th.
The end of March, March 30th.
No, a month away.
As long as it's past St.
And then my suggestion would be that we not schedule a beginning meeting in April then.
That's right, we don't.
All week long?
No.
Okay.
Because this month is so busy.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
So the next meeting will be tentatively scheduled for the 30th at 7.
26th.
26,
26th is our next meeting.
next meeting.
The 30th is our meeting.
The 26th is a regular planning board meeting, Joe, which we have in
Right.
mobile come in, and we're gonna have the downtown project.
The 30th, we're talking about having
Yes.
at 7
yes,
o'clock. That's what I
Yes,
said.
okay, I didn't hear you.
23rd, 26th, and 30th.
Excuse me.
And I'll speak
Yeah.
on A. We just received the final draft on the economic development component of the master plan from the consultants. We'll be meeting the second week of March, I believe.
March 11th,
March 11th.
So have you read it, any of it?
I just got it
Just got it today.
yesterday.
You didn't read any of it? You didn't give me anything like dirt? Come on.
I can give you a copy of it before you leave.
I love,
Yeah.
yeah.
March 21st.
Totally forgot it, you know?
Yeah.
Go to another McDonald's.
March 21st. Noreen, do you want to mention that
Okay,
the
yes.
citizens...
The Citizens Training Conference at Holy Cross is on March 21st, and that's a day affair. It's in Worcester, starts at 8:30 and usually goes to 3:34. So if anyone's interested on March 21st, let me know.
The town does pay for it.
Yeah.
No, I haven't gone in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Should I go?
I think that, I haven't got the agenda yet, what the courses are, which I should be getting soon. I haven't got that. I wanted to see what the courses were.
gotta save the
It
date,
usually has something of interest. It's usually a very good conference.
We usually take one car and go over them.
Yeah, they have a really good deal on the MBTA.
That's the only reason why you asked me to go, so you can drive my vehicle up there.
Yeah,
It's an 8
so-
passenger, so we could put more than the plane.
Well, I know that you can take the commuter rail there.
Yes,
By then it'll be working.
but
We hope.
there is it is, James, just a Holy Cross is a bus ride from the train station.
Okay, yeah.
It's not,
That is straight.
it's not a, no, right.
Stop
Okay.
log.
Yeah. Walking up, yeah, the hill.
Noreen, do we have any updates to discuss?
Anything from the, they did it.
From where?
The meeting they had for the economic development a couple weeks ago, a couple Saturdays ago.
Oh, the SRA.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
I was there. It was
Yeah,
very,
you could give an update, I was not there.
it was very, it was different. What they did is, the Cecil group, both Steve and Emily, and there was another intern, they broke everyone in groups, and what they did is instead of coming up with a city block, they came up with, you know, what does Stoughton need for this, this, and this, you know, green space, you know, something of a commercial, something residential, but there wasn't no defined streets. You know, we never really talked about, you know, closing this street off to this. and this.
Okay, right.
It was a lot of talk, I mean, outside of the meeting, there's a lot of talking about, you know, if Wyman Street should be closed. You know, and they talked about, you know, the traffic, that was the best part, the traffic study they came up with was just like a wake-up call, is that they would take Washington Street and make it 2-lane, not 4-lane, you know, through downtown and make it 2-lane. And that the lights would be timed so that it wouldn't slow you down, you know, when you're at the intersection of 138 and 139, it would be a continuous flow. There were no parking spaces. There would be absolutely no parking spaces in the downtown to give you more length of room. But a big discussion was Steve's building over here is basically putting a street right in front of the train station, you know, paralleling the train station. And instead of, yes, with a cut through, and instead of connecting with Wyman Street, it would go one street above, one street, and then take a left. Yes, exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
I saw it on
And then, yeah, and then it comes
Very
through
interesting.
Walnut and then comes around.
Right.
So basically, in the idea is given a rotary sense.
Now, that part of the project is the town side.
Yeah,
Howard Stein is doing that, and the town decided it would be a good idea to work with the
Yes.
SRA.
yes.
And so the town brought their results over from the traffic side, and
Yeah, so
Lynn is on the traffic group.
So it was great to
Yeah.
see the two, you know,
Concepts are
Yes.
yeah, and then the answers, and they're like, well, the lighting system's traffic, and you're like going, now I know why the town is
amazing.
there.
Walnut Street.
Yes,
one-way,
yes,
and
yes, moving
very
the one-way.
interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
It was good.
And it'd be
A lot of
interesting.
interesting ideas,
Yeah.
concept.
And it was, and then what they did at that point is they, with the traffic studies, they broke everyone in groups and said, okay, let's discuss intersections and what can we increase. And that's when, again, brought up the Wyman Street of, closing Wyman Street. And it's half and half. You get some people who are for it, some people who are against it.
Right.
I'm for it, but I'm against it. I'm for it, and personally, I think they should close it, but I think they should remove the street altogether and build it into real estate and
Sure.
make it, and they talked about,
There were some drawings, some
Yes,
renderings like
yeah.
that with the paved,
Yeah.
the pavers or,
Yeah.
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 make it
paths.
paver, or taking Wyman Street itself and taking it almost the green space and make it the green space from Porter all the way to Wyman. And so the train would have green space on 3 sides.
Yes.
There was a lot of other discussions, and then Steve, Cecil, Emily and Steve both said, and Lou Gito brought this, well, everyone brought it up, but the train not coming through. What if the train doesn't show up? What if the train doesn't extend, And this is, of course, this is 4 weeks ago, before this whole fiasco with the MBTA.
Right.
So,
Who knows?
yeah, yeah. So, depressed rail was always a discussion point.
Right.
But I think a lot of people are, and the thing is that there were a lot of people there. There was about 80 people there.
It's good.
I know, that was good.
I think the traffic, the town hiring Howard Stein and the traffic group working on 3 alternatives, a temporary alternative, then an interim, then a final
Yeah.
alternative, makes such a difference. And you start looking at things differently.
Yes, yes. And then, of course, Mark was there, and he was given the whole thing about the streetscape and how improving
Right.
the streetscape. And you begin to see some, some fabric coming together of the downtown.
You do.
But it was, in time.
Were any of our representatives there from the state?
I didn't see Kafka. I didn't see Brian Joyce. Someone told me he was there, but I didn't see him. And of the selectmen, I saw Johnson. Well, no. Who was there? Bob Regan was there. Cynthia Walsh was there for a moment. That was the only two of the two
Yeah.
selectmen. I guess, Mark was there, but Tom McGrath wasn't there.
Is the trooper been walking around, or is he still crippled?
Yeah. So it was a good meeting, though. Good.
Oh, yeah.
And I know a lot of things, they're building their blocks on the master plan, too, some of the things we did.
Yeah.
And it's kind of working that way.
Yeah, that's exactly, a lot of things
Yeah.
were discussion about the master plan.
Yeah, so kind of the building block and,
Are we all set?
yeah, and build off of it,
Motion to
yes.
adjourn, please.
That's a good update.
Anything else on that agenda, Joe?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. The meeting is over.